I've built Superstar Dundee to most of the wrestling world. But some of you people out there know me as Sir William when I used to manage Lord Stephen Regal. So I would like you all to tune into this live interview and see how the career of the Superstar is going now.
I am with Memphis Wrestling legend, former AWA Tag Team Champion, and former WCW agent and manager of William Regal, Superstar Bill Dundee, also known as Sir William. And to start this career interview off, do you want to tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Well, I was born, I'm not really Australian. I was born in Scotland. I lived there till I was 16, and my mother and father and whole family emigrated to Australia, so I just went with them. So when I started wrestling, they said it was from Australia, but I had a kilt. I was before Piper with a kilt, but he said, why are you wearing a kilt? You're Australian. I said, no, I'm not. I'm Scottish. I was born in Scotland. Well, anyway, when they say it on TV every Saturday morning from Australia, another guy came with me, George Barnes, we come over here as a tag team, so we was the Australians. So when he left and went home, I was just a single Australian, I guess. So they just made me Australian. I said, well, hell, I'll just run with it. So here I am, Australian, but I'm actually a Scotsman.
And you were trained in Australia, from what I understand. What was the training like in those days, and did they smarten you up before you started the training?
Well, I started off in judo as a kid, and you've done martial arts, you know what it is. I mean, you know what's real and what's a work, or what, however you want to look at it. But it was a lot more, how could I say to you? I mean, we believed it was real, and we were convincing the people it was real, so we wrestled a lot more and did a lot more, none of the silly high-flying stuff. That, not saying it's silly, and I'm not saying they're not good athletes, what they do, but it has nothing to do with wrestling.
How did you end up meeting Jim Barnett?
Barnett came to Australia with Championship Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, but he just called it World Championship Wrestling when he ended up in Australia, and he was the promoter. And I was a little guy trying to get in the wrestling business, so he would book you on TV or book you all around to put his big boys over and make them look more like monsters. So I started off doing favors for Barnett, for jobs for Jim Barnett and his crew in Championship Wrestling, Mark Lewin, Spiros Arian, Mario Milano, all them big old boys. So that's how I got technically into the wrestling business, but that's how I got to work for Barnett in Australia.
How was Mark Lewin with you?
Mark liked me. I liked Mark. I got along good with him. I mean, and he was the booker for years over there, so, and he was always very smart. I thought he was. I mean, just watching what he did and how he did it, and what a baby face. So, big old boy could sell, and he did, and he got over like a steamship, and so it was good. And like I said, I got along good with him, so that's all that matters.
How popular was wrestling in Australia at that time?
Unbelievable. They were like movie stars walking there. It was like Memphis Wrestling. I thought Channel 9 wrestling in Australia was people, making a big deal of wrestlers, but when I came to Memphis, whew, mercy. But it was over like Rover in Australia, back when Barnett did the mid-60s.
Did you ever work with Bruiser Brody in Australia when he was over there?
No, I think the size difference would be. I was never around Bruiser much at all. I mean, I've been around him at one or two shows. We've been on same shows, but I never was in the ring with him. No, Lawler worked with him a couple of times in Memphis, but I guess you would think, why would I beat that little guy?
Now, Red Bastien was a booker in Australia.
Hell of a guy.
Yeah. Why is it that everyone talks about the Bishop? They always talk about that he called his genitals the Bishop.
Oh, yeah. I never really quite got into that either. Yeah. But yes, I think it was a joke in some things, but unless you really were in on what they were talking about, it was. And I wasn't far enough up the ladder to know that part. Oh, right. I a little job boy, I never got to hang around with them big boys on their day off.
So you found he was a good booker?
Oh, a good booker, good guy. Very nice fella.
Who would have been the biggest star of the Australia territory at that time?
Well, Mark Lewin, because he had to book the language, so you know how you are. If you're the booker, you push yourself, and if you got the pencil, you're it.
And a lot of people say that just for bookers' egos, but the truth of the matter is a lot of wrestlers aren't trustworthy to be champion, and if you invest time in promoting them and they leave you high and dry or they no-show.
And that has happened 2 or 3 times, yeah. Now, let me take that back on that thing. Mark Lewin was over like Rover as the booker and big thing, but Spiros Arene was a Greek, and a lot of Greeks in Australia. So he would, you know, all the Greeks supported him. Mario Milano was Italian, so all the Italians supported Mario. So them three people like Mark Lewin, Spiros Arene, and Mario Milano were, and Red Bastien was in on that foursome. So and he was just American, when I say just American, but he didn't have no other, you know, Greek or Italian blood in him. He was just, as I said, he was American, which he was, and a hell of a worker.
And why did Barnett end up selling the territory?
He sold it to a guy named Tony Coloni. I really don't know. Like, again, my pay scale was never that. I mean, he just said he was selling out, and Tony Coloni was taking over. He sounded more like a gangster than he did a wrestling promoter. Hey, that's Tony Coloni, or I mean, that name. Yeah. But so I don't really know, but he sold it to him, and it went on for a little while longer. Then Bobby Shane came to Australia, and he saw me and George Barnes. That's how I got here. He said, "You guys should do good in Tennessee. Let me." I said, "Bobby, there's been 10 wrestlers told us how good we would do in the States, but we're still here." He said, "I promise you, I will. I'm not just talking." So he got on the phone, called Jerry Jarrett, and said, "I got a tag team here, George Barnes and Bill Dundee. They would do good in Tennessee, so they like smaller guys, and they're the right size for Tennessee." So he got all the paperwork done, and here we are.
Is Bobby Shane the one that was in the plane accident?
Yeah, in the plane crash, yeah. See, we was the whole thing was we come to Tennessee, get our feet wet on American wrestling, and then go to Florida with him, because he was the booker there.
Yeah.
And then that plane went down, and you sort of know what happened there.
What was your first impressions of Tennessee and the U.S. compared to Australia and Scotland?
Well, Scotland was a lot more wrestling. They had like Tony Charles, Billy Robertson with that style of wrestling when I grew up in Scotland. And I started off in judo, so that was a little different there. And then I grew up on Barnett being the promoter in Australia, so it was a championship, Georgia Championship Wrestling, only he called it Championship Wrestling in Australia, but it was the same type, American type wrestling, kicking, gouging, punching, all that kind of stuff. So it was really no different when the Americans were there.
Yeah.
So that's how we got started.
And what did you think of Nick Gulas when you first met him?
Well, we knew about Nick before we got here, because Larry O'Day and Ron Miller and there'd been Johnny Boyd and 2 or 3 Australians had been over here, worked for Nick, and they came back and said, we hear you're all going to Tennessee. I said, yeah. I said, well, Nick Gulas, you get working for him, he'll promise you the moon and won't even give you a star. And I said, well, anyway, we're going. So Nick was just one of them, what would you say, old-time promoters. He would, hey boy, you made $100 tonight, you get your payoff and you may get 50, but it was just, he talked a bigger game than what you actually got. And his son George, bless his heart, he shouldn't have been in the business at all, but that's another story. So, and Nick made a lot of money, and you know, so what can you say?
What were your first impressions of Jerry Jarrett, and can you explain at the same time how the territory was divided between Gulas and Jarrett? Well,
when we got here, Jerry Jarrett was the booker, and he was very nice, very curt. I mean, he's real baby-faced to talk to in real life. So he was very baby-faced to us, and he told us what he thought we could do and what he thought he wanted out of us and how much money he thought we could make here. So what can you say? I mean, and everything he did, he kept up his end of the bargain. So when George got kind of homesick or whatever it was he did and then decided he was going home, that left little Willie by himself. So, but from the day one, Jerry's mother, Christine Jarrett, said that little dark-haired, cute one needs to be a babyface. He needs to be a good guy. So I said, I'm not a good guy. I'm the bad guy. I'm going to want to be a heel. So anyway, when George left and left me by myself to switch me babyface, and here we are 30 or 40 years later. The rest is history, as they say. It's been very good to me.
And you mentioned in your book there was some issues between Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler at the time you guys came in. Do you recall what that was about?
Well, it was really no big deal. When you know Lawler and Jarrett, once you get to know them, you can see this happening. Lawler went to Jarrett and said, I'm not going to them small towns. I'm only doing the big towns. And Jarrett said, well, if you don't go to the small ones, you're not going to the big ones. He said, well, I just won't go to any. He said, well, okay. So he went off to Florida, stayed there about 3 or 4 months, then he came back, which was good for me and Barnes, because the top dog had left the yard, and they were looking for something else. So me and Barnes kind of took over from Lawler. He went off to Florida, which was good for us. Then George went home, and then I'm the good guy, so back Lawler comes and says, hey, I want my big yard back, and that little Aussie has to go. So him and I started the program, been doing it for 30 years. So.
And you had some early success selling out the Mid-South Coliseum 5 weeks in a row after you were starting about 3,000 fans when you first started wrestling there. What was the key to your early success?
Well, I think, I don't know, just after George, just when we was a tag team, George Barnes was a tough son of a gun, and we was a hell of a tag team. So, and we made heel interviews, you know what I mean, like we're Australians, you're Americans, and blah blah, knocking the people, and that got over in Memphis at the time we was doing it. So then when they switched me babyface, if you're over as a heel, you're automatically over as a babyface, so that, I think, helped there.
Now, when your partner decided to go back to Australia, how did you feel at the time, and were you concerned about your position with the company?
Well, not really, because Jerry Jarrett had, I mean, it wasn't like he just up and left in the night. He told people, you know, like they knew for a month he was going, so we all had this to sink into our head, there'll be no George 4 weeks from now. So then he got on the plane, went home. So Jerry had in his head what he wanted to do with me, and that was make me the good guy, and that's what he did, and here we are.
What are your memories of working with David Schultz?
Dr. D, oh God. I got along good with him. I mean, he was a big, rough, tough, hard-to-bluff guy, and he what you saw is what you got. But we had good matches, and people bought a ticket to see us, and that's all that matters. I mean, if you're drawing people, the promoter loves you. You know how it is. It's just how it is. If you don't draw any money, they can be his brother, but you got to go. If you're not drawing no money, that's just how it is.
What was your reaction when you saw the 2020 incident with Dave?
When he slapped the guy?
Yeah. Did you think it was good for the wrestling?
Well, yeah, I figured, and I knew Schultz how he was. I thought if that guy says anything silly to him, something stupid's going to happen. And I mean, you know Dave, bam. But that's how he was.
Yeah.
So it didn't shock me, but it shocked Stolt. What was his name? Stossel?
Yeah.
Yeah, something Stossel. Yeah, it shocked him, bam.
And he made a lot of money off of that, Stossel did. So
yeah,
at the end, I would take a slap for that price too.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your book that Big Bad John gave you the name Superstar in an interview that he did.
Yeah.
How did you like the name, and did you ever have any heat with Superstar Billy Graham over?
No, and I've worked with him and been on tag with, yeah. But if Superstar Graham came in, I never, when we first started early on,
yeah.
I just said Bill Dundee, and he said Superstar Billy Graham. So I never did nothing to kind of, what would you say, piss him off or do.
Yeah.
So I was just Bill Dundee, because we worked Memphis together.
Right.
Superstar Billy Graham, Bill Dundee. Didn't bother me. Now when he went away, we added back to Superstar. So
he's done a bunch of interviews with us in the past, and I guess he only did a few shots in Memphis. He wouldn't do the whole tour.
No, he never did the thing. He just came to Memphis mainly.
How was he as a draw in Memphis?
He did good.
Now, Big Bad John was actually stabbed to death, right? Do you know any details about that? Like why he was killed?
No, I know the character of the man, so I mean, I could see him getting into a fight with a guy. I mean, big old boy, and you know, and he wasn't as tough as he looked. There's some big guys that are tough, and some big guys are just big, and John was just big.
And there's probably more big guys that are just big. In my experience as a bouncer, it's the little guys you got to worry about. Right,
there you go. So I mean, So I mean, him getting stabbed. I mean, I could understand him making an interview to a guy or talking to the guy, blah blah blah, and then something goes wrong, and he gets stabbed. But I got along good with him. And back to the Superstar thing, he was always a heel here, and in 1976 was the bicentennial year.
Right.
Red, white, and blue. So Jerry Jarrett pulled him over to me and him over, and he says, "I got a hell of an idea. Big Bad John, we're going to name you the bicentennial baby. You're reborn on the 70, you know, there was
Yeah.
76. So you're going to go from the bad guy to the good guy, and you're going to wear a red, white, and blue outfit, which he did. And then he said, we're going to team you up with Dundee. He'll do the selling, you'll do the comebacks, blah, 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 blah. So when we were out on the team, he said, so he went out and he had the hat on, the top hat and all the stuff. He said, well, if I'm going to be the bicentennial baby, this kid right here is going to be the superstar from now on. So it's a superstar and the bicentennial baby, Big Bad John, and that's how it started.
Oh, interesting. Now, you were Southern Tag Team Champions with Rocky Johnson, who's now in the WWE Hall of Fame, and he's probably better known as the father of The Rock. Any thoughts on your tag teaming with him and how he was as a person?
Oh, he was very good, very nice person to me. Rocky was a good guy. I mean, well, have you been around Dwayne Johnson? He's just the same.
No, but we have interviewed Rocky.
Yeah, well, Rocky, you know how he is. He's like that. That's just how he is. I mean, you know. And I got along good with him, and his wife Ada got along with my first wife Beverly, and they would come to our house, and Dwayne and little guy and Jamie Dundee, little bitty fellas, he'd go wrestle, but we could never get them to wrestle when they were little. You know, your dad's our age.
Yeah.
But they were smarter than we were. They never did nothing. They're just, I'm not wrestling him. Okay, they're this big.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the whole family was very good to me. And then the Maivas, Peter Maiva, you know who he is? You've heard of him?
Chief, yeah.
Ooh, mercy, that's the same family.
Yeah.
Bad boy right there, tough, ooh, mercy.
What's an example of his toughness? Because I've heard a few things about him, but I wasn't sure how much of it is true. It was usually surrounded by race when the High Chief would get into his barroom fights, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, and do the thing, yeah, he would fight you now, and could, and very strong.
Yeah.
Well, look how thick he was. I mean, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, and he had all
And
those
back
tattoos.
in them days, it was just, there was no guns, there was really no, I mean, you just got into a fight and that was it.
Yeah.
So, and you know, Peter was a tough boy.
And just while we're on the subject of Rocky Johnson, your wife mentioned to me earlier that your daughter actually babysat The Rock.
Yeah. So yeah, they all grew up, like my son and my daughter and The Rock all kind of was the same age growing up.
And then we'll go back to your past in a minute, but just to skip ahead, when Rocky first came to Memphis, could you tell us any memories of him when he was starting out in the business?
The Rock, when he started off as Flex Cabana,
Yes.
not his dad, not Rocky.
Yeah, I know it's confusing because he had numerous names before he became The Rock.
But yeah, he was a big, good-looking kid and he could work. But Rocky, his dad didn't want the Johnson name rubbing off and say, well, he just got over it because he's dead.
Yeah.
He wanted him to make it on his own. Well, you can't get more far away. Flex Cabana, Rocky Johnson, you'd never tie them together.
Yeah.
But when you saw him work or do the thing, it started, you know, Rocky did a lot of the things that, The Rock did a lot of things that his dad, Rocky did, drop kick and all them things. So there was a similarity on the working.
How was he attitude-wise?
Oh, very good. And he still is. His attitude on life is good. Now,
you can't get as far as you can without that, really.
Right. So you would think, well, why would he have anything to bitch about now? He's the highest paid movie star in the world, never mind wrestling. But you have to get there, and you only get there if somebody helps you, and your personality will better be going with it, or you're not going. You know how it is. You've been around this business. I mean, promoter make or break you.
Yeah, because the promoter has to want to push you to get that push, and if he hadn't been given that wrestling push, he never would have been a movie star because that came out of wrestling.
Right. So that was the same thing, little different scale. But Jerry Jarrett and me, when he called the meeting with all the boys, he said, I know how some of you looking at Bill, he's only 5'7", 210 pounds, but this is who I'm going with, and if you don't like it, but nobody seemed to not like it, so everybody made money.
And you think The Rock is serious that he might run for president in the future? I know he's not going to do it the next election because he's already busy with movie plans, but he's saying possibly in the future he might run.
Well, that part I really can't answer because I don't know what his political view was. When I knew him, he was just a young guy trying to get in the wrestling business, and the movies maybe that's what was focused on his head, but he's been there, done that, so now what do you look at?
Yeah.
So I can't really answer that. No, I have no idea if he's serious or just saying it.
Did you have much contact with Jesse Ventura over the years?
Jesse Ventura, yeah, he came in here. We used him in here a little bit. And again, I got along pretty good with him. But when you're 6'6" and I'm 5'7", he had not worried about me taking his spot, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I read in your book that there was some heat with Jerry Lawler from the military legions and the military about him calling his fans the Lawler's army, and it actually affected business a little bit. Could you just...
doing the general.
Yeah.
He wore the uniform, and he did, I mean... That was all kind of blown out of proportion. I mean, Lawler was doing a character. It was like making a movie. But we didn't call it that back in them days. But he was playing a part as the general, and he had his army.
It was a cartoonish.
It was a cartoon thing. I mean, they do that, but some of the RS, you know, what do you call them, the returned soldiers and sailor clubs over in Jonesboro, some of the smaller ones got mad at him.
Okay.
So that's how that got. But yeah. Oh yeah, he got a little heat because of that.
And to this day, people still continuously bash Nick Gulas. Why was there so much heat against him?
Well, Nick was George's father, and he would never got a job if it hadn't been his dad, hadn't been the promoter, and you had to put him over.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? And everybody, so that was the heat there. His dad babysat him.
So George is the son that had the big push.
George is the son, yeah, got the big push, and Nick was the dad.
And I guess that ultimately created a conflict with Jerry Jarrett that led to the split.
Yeah. See, what led to the split, Jerry had technically bought part of half of the thing. This is what the part I had. I don't know if this is even true, but I think it is. And paid Nick the money. And then when it came time for Jerry to make a decision, but telling George he couldn't wrestle, Nick goes, well, this is my damn territory, boy. And he said, well, I bought half of these. Nick kind of said, well, show me where. So then Jerry kind of realized that this wasn't going the way that Nick said it was going to go. So he just broke away, and I'm sure Nick in the end wishes he hadn't, but he did.
And Nick was known for low pay and screwing over talent. Do you have any examples of how he would screw over a talent?
Well, he would bring you in and promise you X amount of dollars and not pay you, so he'd starve you to death, so you just had to leave. I mean, his word never meant nothing.
Sounds like the experience I had with Carlos Colon.
Yeah, right. So, but with Nick, it was just... And Jerry Jarrett had took over by the time I got working for Nick. So I dealt with Jarrett, so it was everything he said came through.
So I guess when the split happened, you guys couldn't run the Mid-South Coliseum because Nick had the contract to that. How low did the attendance get at the Mid-South Coliseum under Nick Gulas working by himself before they offered the Coliseum back to you guys?
Oh, it was terrible. Nothing but 800 people maybe.
Oh, wow. And
then, you know, we went to the other building downtown. So we never quite just left Memphis, but we were running another building.
And what were some of the most important things that you learned from traveling and being around Jerry Jarrett over the years?
Well, I mean, he was very smart to this business. He's smart to business in life. He's smart in life. I mean, business... the everyday life, and especially the wrestling business. So he said, Bill, if you tell somebody you're going to do something, do it. You know, he said, I know a lot of wrestlers that go, oh yeah, I'll be there this week, blah, blah, and they won't show up. I mean, he said, don't do that. That's the first thing that will kill you. With the people who say, well, Dundee won't show up, even if he says he will. He said, if you say you're going to be there, be there. And then, you know, he said, just work hard and it'll all fall into place, what you did.
And how did you end up becoming a member of the booking team in Memphis?
How did I read? This is true. So anyway, I got to drinking beer one night, and I thought, well, I need to be the booker. This is just me talking to me sitting on the couch. So I called Jerry Jarrett up, and I said, hey man, Bill Dundee, I need to be the booker. He said, have you ever been the booker? Now he's having a kind of a reasonable conversation with the drunk.
Yeah.
No, I've never been to a booker, but I'd like to have a go at it. You know how you go. So anyway, he says, you need to go to bed and I'll see you at TV in the morning. Because that was Friday night.
Yeah.
So go to bed, get up, do TV. So I kind of forgot about the conversation. technically. So he says to me, hey, you still thinking about being the booker? I said, being the booker? Why would I want to be the booker? He said, well, last night you was telling me how great you was. I said, well, okay, that was last night. So he says, but if you want to give it a shot, get a book and a pencil and come to the office Monday morning. So I went up there and he said, no, do the thing. Because I had no idea what went into running a territory or booking or doing the thing.
Yeah.
So he says, just sit in that chair and just watch what goes on and listen to the conversations on the phone with the boys or whoever else calls and see what you think. So that's how it all started.
With all the booking you've done over the years for an independent promoter that might be watching this, what are some of the basic advice you would give to a booker?
Well, you got to get a crew that trusts you. That's the main thing. Get 6 guys or half of that, whatever, but they have to trust you. Because their life's on the line as well as yours. When I went to Louisiana and got Ricky and Robert and Terry Taylor, Buddy Landale, Dutch Mantell, and Bill Dundee all to go to Louisiana, that was a whole world away from where we'd been. We'd all been in Tennessee forever.
Yeah.
So we were going off to work for Bill Watts, a guy we didn't really know, but they were trusting me. So that's the thing that anybody out there, if you're trying to get a crew together, handpick your crew and make sure they trust you and don't lie to them.
So you would have something like 6 to 8 core guys, and
Right.
you would gain their trust and kind of book the territory around those
Right.
core guys.
And the other guys come and go, yeah.
Now, what was working with the Honky Tonk Man like, and could you talk about the infamous Two for Low concession stand brawl?
He was in on that as the Honky Tonk Man, wasn't he? This was before the jumpsuit era, but anyway, yeah.
He was, what was he, the Blonde Bomber at that time?
Yeah, the Blonde Bombers, him and Larry Latham were the Blonde Bombers. One became the Moondog and he became the Honky Tonk Man, but back then they were the Blonde Bombers and they were a rough, tough team, hard to bluff, and that just happened, the concession stand brawl. It wasn't laid out that blah blah. It just we got over. They jumped over there, and me and Lawler followed them. Where once you get there, and you get face to face, you got to fight. So we was in the concession stand by this time. So I think he threw a can of orange juice at his cousin. I don't know if he meant to hit him with it or not, but he tried awful hard. And if Wayne hadn't ducked, that would have, and it would hit the wall. Big thing, orange juice fly out of the ring, and then they got fighting, and then Jerry Jarrett comes, tries to break it up, and then we ripped his clothes off, and all the things that happened. So, and that was just a thing that happened. Right. That was never laid out, whatever, blah blah blah. You couldn't lay it out. It's just one of them ad lib things.
I see.
And it sold out the whole territory.
Did Honky Tonk Man ever talk to you before he kind of adapted elements of your hairstyle and what you'd wear right now?
No, I believe Vince just told him, grow your hair longer and make it black like Dundee's or Elvis, whatever way you want to look at it. See, and again, you couldn't just say it was Bill Dundee because Elvis had done it before I did it. I mean,
Right.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah.
So I, did that sideboards and the whole thing. So, well, all the honky tonkers said, well, I'm not doing you, I'm doing Elvis just like you did. So, I mean, what could you say?
And what is the long-time heat with the Honky Tonk Man and Jerry Lawler all about?
That, again, I really can't answer it, but they're cousins, real cousins. I mean, they're family, and you know how that goes.
Yeah.
So, I really have no idea, and I don't... See, people think me and Lawler don't like one another, but that's not true. And I think their heat is as much work-wise as it is real.
Right.
So, like me and Lawler, I mean, we don't hang around together because it's bad for business, but... So I think him and the Honky Tonk may be a little on that level too. But again, I don't really know. So, and if there's real heat, I have no idea.
Do you think Jerry would ever induct Honky Tonk Man in the Hall of Fame if Honky Tonk Man ever gets inducted?
If he gets it that far, yeah. Get his cousin Jerry Lawler to induct him. Yeah, I really don't know about that either.
Working with Terry Taylor, what was that like?
I thought Terry Taylor was the best babyface in the business at the time we did it. He was very quiet, meek and mild type guy, and but he could wrestle and he could work, and good looking guy, and he was a hell of a babyface. Sale, and that's what it's all about. Ricky Morton, another one. And you can only get as much heat as they let you, and they would let you.
Now, in later years, he worked in the office for WCW and WWE, and a lot of wrestlers talk negatively about him these days. Do you think that's because he was just in an office position, or do you think he really had attitude issues with some guys?
You may end up getting a little bit of both, but I worked in Ted Turner's office too, and the people that run it weren't wrestling people. Bill Shaw and the other kid that did it. So you could be the best brains in the wrestling business, but if they didn't like it, it never was done.
Yeah.
So you had to go through them to get whatever you wanted done, and sometimes you just got tired of going butting heads with them.
Yeah. I think he still is a trainer or something to this day for WWE. And what was your experiences like working with Dusty Rhodes when he came through here?
Big Dust. Now I like Dusty. I mean, I like Virgil. I mean, he was funny. Then he could work. He could talk. And when we were in here, most of the time he worked with Lawler.
Yeah.
That basically, or if they worked with Bill Dundee, it was to get them ready for Lawler.
Yeah.
And I didn't mind doing 30 years of that for Lawler because we all ate.
Yeah.
So they would, I'd wrestle them first, maybe they'd beat me, then they'd go on to Lawler. People said, oh, Lawler will kill him. Sell out. That's what we was all hoping for, more money. So I had no problem with Big Dusty. When I went to work at WCW, he was the head honcho. Eric Bischoff was supposed to be, but that's another kettle of fish.
We'll get into that in a little bit. There's a story in your book that I'm sure hurt Dusty's egos a bit. You said that you were recognized in the Carolinas by a truck driver.
Oh yeah, that was funny too. This is the first time I've ever heard him say this, and I've heard Dusty say everything. We go in there and the guy's, so much started, he's shaking hands with me, you can cut the cuss word out, right, if I say a cuss word, is the thing.
I can bleep it.
Yeah, so we're sitting there, so the guy talking to Big Bill Dundee, and I said, you know my buddy here? And he went, the guy looked at him, he said, no, I'm afraid I don't. And the Dream went, I'm the American Dream. Dusty Rhodes. He said, what do you do, live in a cave? You ain't got a TV? And he went on with a whole interview like that to the guy.
Yeah.
I said, he just didn't recognize you. He said, everybody recognizes me, or words to that effect. It was funny, and Dusty made it funny. But the guy, he knew me, and he didn't know Big Dust. In the Carolinas, for God's sake.
Now, you mentioned Dusty's real name was Virgil, and that reminded me of a story Sid told me. And it seems a little odd to be true, but Sid told me the WWE Virgil, the Black Virgil, came through Memphis, and I guess Sid's version of the story is he sucked his own dick in the dressing room or something, and he said Jerry Jarrett fired him over it. Is there any truth to that?
I wasn't here on that deal, so I really don't know. But I mean, I know the Black Virgil that you're talking about, and they said he could do that. I've never seen it happen, but yeah. So, but I have no idea. So whether that's true or not true, I wasn't here when I was probably with Watts when that was going on.
I'll have to ask. I don't really want to ask Jerry about it, but I'm curious if that's true or not. Now, could you tell the story of Jackie Fargo dressing up as Santa and then getting drunk and
came to the house. Yeah, that was funny. Fargo would do it at Christmas time. He'd dress up as Santa and come to your house and the kid. So he by the time that's over, everybody would give him a drink.
Yeah.
Fargo would be half lit. He'd maybe go 5 houses, drive his own big Cadillac, and come in with a bag of toys that you gave him. So he knelt on one of Jerry's kids' toys. He drunk. He knelt on the damn thing, and it was funny. And Jarrett telling the next day, he said, "Fucking Santa came to my house drunk." Oh, little man, he said. That's what he called Jerry Jarrett, little man. He said, "Oh, little man, I wasn't that drunk." He said, "Well, you knelt on my kid's damn big truck, broke it all to hell, Santa." It was funny.
For those that aren't familiar with Memphis Wrestling watching this, how popular was Jackie Fargo?
Oh my God, like Elvis.
Now, in the late 70s, a lot of people say that was the peak of Memphis Wrestling. Can you explain how popular it was as far as TV ratings, getting recognized on the street, and what the weekly attendance was like, approximately all the towns how many people would be attending a show in an average week?
Well, so, look, you can kind of count it this way. If Memphis did 9,000 people or 10,000 people on Monday night, you went up to Louisville on Tuesday, that would do about the half of that. Then you went over to Evansville, Indiana on the Wednesday, and that would do the half of the Louisville thing. So you just cut it all in half because it was smaller buildings. And then we'd go back to Lexington, Tennessee, the Rupp Arena on the Thursday. That would be another big house, 7,000 or 8,000 people. Then Tupelo on a Friday night would be maybe 1,000 people. And then Jonesboro, Arkansas on a Saturday night, maybe another 800 to 1,000. And then on the way home you could do Jackson, Tennessee. And that would be, sometimes the building hold 5,000, it would be sold out, or maybe half of that. So whatever Memphis was, it would basically be about half. So that was a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think Memphis holds the record that'll never be broken of consecutive attendance on every Monday night, because New York never ran on a weekly basis.
No.
And what was the attendance in Mid-South? It could go up to 11,000 or something.
Yeah, 11 was about to sell out, but 7s and 8s were pretty good. And if you're doing that every week, that's a lot of people in a month.
How important was it to carry a gun as a heel at the peak of the popularity?
Yeah, it wasn't for the fans. There would be lots of people trying to take over this territory, different wrestling companies.
Yeah.
So, and it was just what would you say? Nobody ever shot anybody. Nobody ever pulled the gun out or whatever. Well, that's not quite true. I have a story I can tell you, but but you know what I mean? It was just protection.
Yeah. I think we'll get into that story now. Could you tell the whole story of, for those that don't know, the Paffos, which was Randy, Randy and Angelo, they had ICW, which was the outlaw independent company that was running around this area. Right. And
based out of Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah, and there was some pretty serious heat between the two companies at the time.
And I don't really know why they were mad at us. We were here, or Jarrett and Gulas was here for 40 years before they were ever here. And they come in and try to take over, and they never. Yeah. So, have you ever been around Randy?
I've only spent too much time that I should have around Lanny, but I never met Randy.
Randy, I just don't really know whether it was alcohol, drugs, or a little bit of both, or what it was, or he was just goofy. But he was goofy. So the thing with me and him was, oh God, I had come out of the gym. Now this is the day or a week before, and he was walking to his car and I was walking to my car, and he was by himself. So I said, Randy, how you doing? You know, did you just bump into another one of the boys? It was just like, hey man, how you doing? So he said, you really don't give a fuck. I said, well, seeing you put it that way, you're absolutely right. I don't. So I just got in the car and left. So the next time, we're the same gym. I'm walking out to my car, and I see George Weingroff and Pez Watley. And they're standing, walking up there, and I'm walking to my car, and they just come walking down there. So I stand talking to them, leaning against my car, just like this. So I'm leaning against my car, looking at both of them. And then right out of the nowhere, bam! I said, what the hell? Randy, run by and sucker punched me, hit me in the eye, kind of busted this eye up here a little bit. But anyway, dude said, you son of a bitch. So we get rolling around like two old women on the ground, and that gets stopped. So there's three of them technically, but not really. There's just Randy, but the other two are, and they had their van sitting up on the hill with the whole crew in it. So I thought, if I get to the back of my car, I will restore order. So and no buttons in them days, you have to put the key in and turn the thing in the trunk. So I said, oh God, I hope this thing ain't locked. So I get it in there, turn it, pops open, briefcase laying there. So I hope this briefcase ain't locked. So I click it and open, 38. So here comes Randy up to the thing. So as he gets up, his dad Angelo walks up this side of the, so I don't know where he came from. He wasn't there at the beginning, but he walked up. So as he gets to about a foot from me, I cocked the gun and put it to his head, and I said, your son, tell him to leave or I will shoot you right where you stand. So Randy says, "Oh, you're crazy, you son of a bitch," and he's cussing and swearing and da. I said, "Maybe, but I'm not putting this pistol away till you all leave." So Randy and Angelo just take off. Pistol pads and them and just go. The van's up on the hill. So I thought, well, I go to the gym, work out, get in my car, drive home, and there's a cop leaving my door. He says, "Bill, you getting a fight today?" "Well, yeah, kinda." He said, "There's a warrant here for your arrest with a deadly weapon." I said, "Let me ask you who did it." "The Pappas." He said, "Yeah, Randy Savage and his dad." I said, "Well, okay." So leave the thing. So I go up to Jarrett. I says, "Hey man, we need to get a lawyer to go fight this thing. They've took this to whatever." So Saul Weingroff, George Weingroff, worked for Randy and them. So he worked as a sheriff's department or a jailer up at the jail. So the day we go to court, I'm sitting in the court here with my lawyer, and Angelo comes up to me and he says, "We need to go Broadway in this." I said, "I ain't going Broadway in this. I'll win this." I said, "Well, maybe you won't." I said, "No, there's no maybes to it. He sucker punched me. I never laid a hand on him." I said, "I was defending myself with that pistol. There was 3 of y'all, 4 of y'all with you, and me. So look, look how little I am compared to all you, just."
Yeah.
So he said, "Well, we'll see." So the jailer guy, Saul Weingroff, comes up. He says, "Bill, we could get this all thrown out and nobody will have to do nothing, da 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 da." I said, "Oh, Saul, you know how they are." And he said, "Well, I know." I said, "I've known the Pappas a long time, and I've known Angelo, Randy and things growing up." I said, "Well, that was them, but now they're grown men and Randy's goofy." So anyway, I called Jarrett back. No cell phones. I go find a phone in a quarter. So I called. I said, "Hey man, they want to throw this thing out. What do you want to do?" He said, "Well, that's up to you." I said, "No, it's your territory, your thing." I said, where do you think this will go? If it hits the papers, we're carrying guns and shooting one another. You know how it will be." He said, "Well, if it don't bother you, just tell them to throw it out." So then we would go back to court, and I saw Weingroff comes up. I said, "So, go tell the man that we're going to throw it out." He said, "Well, okay." So they call us up to Bill Dundee approached the bench. Randy Pappas approached the bench. We would walk up with the lawyer, standing between it. So the guy says to me, "Bill Dundee, you want to drop the charges against Randy Pappas?" I said, "Yes, sir." Bam. "Randy Pappas, you dropped the charge against Bill Dundee?" He said, "Yes, sir." Bam. Thrown out. You can both leave. So that was all that came to. But they were the ones that started the fight and then went and had me arrested with a gun.
And now, throughout the years, that whole story has changed. You were pistol whipped or something.
Yeah, Randy told everybody that on that thing there. Yeah. I went and saw him about that too. And yeah, he said he took it off me and pistol whipped me with the thing. Yeah, right. The fucker run away. He was a mile away.
And there was some other issues. Wasn't there some issue with Randy in a restaurant or something at one point?
Yeah, that was the same week they arrested him for that. He was goofy.
Yeah. He pulled a knife or something like that.
Yeah, the guy did something. Yeah, he was goofy.
And from what the rumors are, he was doing all sorts of stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
That may have played a role in his early death.
Probably.
What was your backstage fight with Tommy Rich all about?
Oh, we were just drunk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just threw 2 punches at one another. Bam, bam. So, you know how that was. It wasn't really a fight.
And there was a story in your book about the van when Tommy Rich brought the van, something about your ex-wife.
Oh, my ex-wife did. I had bought a van. He bought one just like the exact custom van with the beds and the fridges and all that shit. You know what that was for? It was a hotel room on wheels. So we go drive up in mine, and my wife comes out and she looks at it and she says, "Well, this is a rolling whorehouse." And that's what my wife said to me. I said, "What do you mean by a rolling whorehouse?" She said, "You heard what I said, a rolling whorehouse on wheels." And then Tommy comes driving up on hedge and she went, "Oh God almighty, there's 2 of them, 2 rolling whorehouses." And I said, "Well, all right, Beverly." She put up with a lot of bullshit off of me, but it was fun.
Yeah, you were saying in your book that the groupies were pretty much in every town. They were very aggressive in those days, I guess.
Yeah, well, that was it was like Elvis. I mean,
Yeah.
when they first saw him, they all went crazy. Wrestlers was the same way. That TV was hot.
I've heard, I forget who it was that said it now, but someone said that Tommy Rich had the most groupies he'd ever seen of any wrestler, and they'd literally be throwing their hotel room keys at him.
Well, kind of like that. There was a lot of them like that. I mean, that was a different era. They don't do that no more.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this part. I mean, if anybody come around and checked all the ages, there's no telling. We would all been in jail probably. Who knows?
And he probably wouldn't have gotten away with as much now that there's cell phones and social media. Because you could legitimately not be reached for days if you didn't want to, and you're on the road. So you
or somebody take a picture of it you didn't want out there.
Yeah. And yeah, and they'd have to mail it to your wife. Now they can just post it for everyone.
Right. I mean, yeah. So I mean, but back then days it never seemed nobody bothered nobody that way.
Can you tell the story of the altercation with Jerry Lee Lewis?
Mean the Killer?
Yeah.
Well, you have to know Jerry Lee. So we did a benefit show at a nightclub together. There was not just me and him, but there was a lot of entertainers and all the thing. So he was sitting there doing the deal, and so I wanted the Killer to get up with somewhere, then I would do the thing, and he said, I ain't getting up with that phony fucking wrestler, and that's how he put it. I said, the Killer would do it. So he said, tell that the phony fucking wrestler to shut up, words to that effect. So I went up and talked to him. I said, hey man, I don't insult you, so you don't need to be insulting me in front of all their fucking people. Well, all these bodyguards, 3 or 4 of them with him, and I said, they're not going to fucking help you before the fight starts, because you're the first fucker I'm knocking out. But when he got on the whiskey, he could be a little hard to handle too. But that was the only time, and I've been out with him 2 or 3 times, but that, I don't know what was wrong with him that night.
Now, do you believe that Ric Flair has had sex with 10,000 women?
No. I'm not a Ric Flair fan, he's a liar.
And I don't believe that he had sex with, there was another woman that recently came out. I don't know why her name isn't coming to me now. She was in the Flintstones movie, but yeah, I guess he had made a comment that he had had sex with a celebrity.
He had said, when somebody asked him about, have you ever been with a Hollywood star, and he said,
yeah,
what about, and he said the name. I remember seeing that too, and I can't think of her name either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about where your heat with Ric Flair came from? I think it had something to do with you were supposed to wrestle him in Memphis, but the angle was changed.
Well, I don't know if that was really the heat part. We just didn't like one another in real life type thing. I mean, Rick was he was different. And I don't think that angle, me not really working with him, bothered him any. We did a deal. See, when the champion comes to town, as you know, you put him over, you go Broadway to get a DQ. That's the only 3 things you can do.
Yeah.
And when he leaves, your territory usually goes on its ass.
Yeah.
Well, I had that bright idea. It was my job to keep it up. So I told Coco Ware, I said, Coco, how would you like to work with Ric Flair? He said, oh, the world's champ. I said, yeah. He said, that'd be great. I said, well, I need an opponent for when he leaves, and that will be you. So we shot the angle for the Southern title holder always wrestled the world's champion. It came in this territory. Well, I had the Southern belt, and I was up till Saturday morning. The next Monday would be Memphis. I was going to wrestle Flair. All the publicity was out for all that. And then Coco beat me on the last 10 minutes of the live show Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So that belt switched to Coco. The thing went, wow, Coco's now the champion. Coco will be wrestling Ric Flair Monday night. The floor mat, Coco Ware, Ric Flair. Boom. So Rick hasn't heard of that till now. Now he comes into Memphis Monday night. He gets in the cab, and the cab driver says, hey, Mr. Flair, I hope you beat Coco Ware. And he said, who? He said, I've never heard of Coco Ware. He said, I'm wrestling Bill Dundee. He said, no, you was wrestling Bill Dundee, but That got changed Saturday morning when Coco Ware beat Bill Dundee for the Southern title. You wrestling Coco Ware. So he come into the Coliseum screaming and hollering, and Dusty went up and tried to calm him down. Because Coco was black and he was using the N-word, and that, you know, but...
Flair was using the N-word?
Flair was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He says, who's this fucking nigger I'm wrestling? So...
Tony Atlas had told us in one of our interviews that Flair was known to have a bit of a racist side to him.
Oh yeah, it was just how it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just how you just said the N-word or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Nobody took no... And then as things progressed, I guess it got... But anyway, he was using it, and Dusty went up and said, hey, Nature Boy, calm down, calm down. Anyway, after he had the match with him, what a match they had. They tore the fucking house down. Because Coco could work.
Yeah.
And Flair got that out of his system and got going, and they worked. They had a hell of a match. So then I had an opponent now come back next week. That if you're trying to book something, that's what you do. You're thinking next week, not just this week.
Yeah.
So that's what it does. And now anyway, so but I don't really think that got heat with him. We just never saw eye to eye in real life.
Is that one of the reasons why he didn't come to Memphis very often? Because you didn't meet him really?
I never booked him when I was the booker. I mean, Lawler would book him because Lawler would want to work with him.
Right. How was Coco to deal with behind the scenes in those days? Because I've experienced on my own promotions that in recent years he...
No, he got worse as he got older.
Yeah, he wants to come in and beat whoever the local star is and leave.
Yeah, well that...
Now you talked in your book about Jimmy Valiant and how his wrestling personality was totally different than his real personality. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you know how handsome was he would, you know, hey brother, I did 3 gainers off the San Francisco Bridge, this blah, 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 blah. But when you see him in real life, this is how he talks to you. Hey brother. And that's about it, you know, the persona is nothing like his wrestling persona. It's just, and that's just how he is. But when he turns the microphone on and the red light comes on, whew, mercy, there's nobody better.
I guess you had a bunch of matches with Billy Robinson. How did you rate him as a wrestler?
As a wrestler, there's nobody better. As a performer, he can, but Billy can wrestle.
Yeah.
And Tony Charles can too. And, you know, and all them English guys are like that. And I learned in Australia, and I learned English style, so they like working with me because I could do all that. Most of the American guys can't do it.
Was there ever any issues of Billy stretching any Americans?
No, I never really saw any. I think somebody told me he got a fight a couple of times in Canada with somebody, but I never saw that side of him anywhere.
Yeah, no, I spoke to the promoter of that territory that was booking during the time that Robinson had that fight with Sailor White, and he said Robinson was coming out of the bar drunk and he was cold caught, like totally blindsided. So he said that wasn't a fair fight. It's not like Billy Robinson was expecting it and he wanted to get revenge, but they didn't want anything further happening in the territory, so nothing further came out of it. But and then I think, wasn't there something with Peter Maivia and Billy Robinson? I heard?
Peter bit him.
Yeah, you hear about Haku and all these Islanders, they bite and they'll gouge the eyes.
Big strong jaws. Well, Billy was going to suplex him. That's why he bit him. I mean, you have him here, his head's right here. He bit him right on the chest. Peter bit Billy.
Yeah.
So he's going to get dropped on his head, I guess.
Did you ever have any dealings with Haku in WCW when you were an agent?
Nothing. Just, hey man, how are you?
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Now, Austin Idol, you mentioned in your book that he had a habit of no-showing shows for you guys. Could you?
Yeah, he could do that. Well, in the end, lots of places, but yeah.
And what are your thoughts on Jimmy, the Mouse of the South Heart?
Oh, I like Jimmy. He loved everybody. So you know, just that. Hey, love you, brother. I mean, not, you know, and love you. So he called everybody baby. Love you, baby. So you when you know, like Big Dusty Rhodes, I love Dusty Rhodes to death. A lot of people didn't like him, but I liked him and I got along good with him. Jimmy, I like Hart and got along good with him too. So you got to take the good with the bad, and we all have it, I think.
I think it's funny, you were telling me earlier in this interview about the world champion is supposed to make the local wrestler good, but we wanted to bring in Dusty's son once to our company when he was the Ring of Honor world champion, and we had the list of the demands from the son. He has to win, it has to be by pinfall, he will not do countouts, he will not do disqualifications. So I just think it's unfortunate the way that wrestling has changed now, where the stars don't want to help the smaller territories anymore. Where in the old days it seemed like that was the case.
And that was the reason you brought a star in to train your guy, Tyke. I mean, if you work with the world's champion in the good old days, you learned something.
Yeah.
The world's champion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like you said today, I've never been around the world's champion in the last 5 or 6 years because we've never had a territory.
Yeah, unfortunately the territories are dying off. Some independent companies are running periodically and getting good crowds, but I don't think there's too many territories that you could work really now. Maybe a couple places in England, possibly, but the money isn't good. But definitely, I think the last place was Puerto Rico, and even there...
Yeah, I've been there. I've been to Puerto Rico a couple of times, and I didn't mind it, but it was just, you know, the money wasn't what it was in the good old days.
And you talked to me before about Bobby Eaton being your son-in-law. Could you talk to us a little bit about your relationship with Bobby Eaton over the years?
Well, after I realized he was dating my daughter, it all got... No, I mean, yeah. So, but if she was going to marry a wrestler, she couldn't have picked a better one because he's a gentle, giant type thing. He never bothers anybody. He likes to drink. He doesn't drink like he used to, but in the good old days, we all drank more beer than we should have. So... As far as a wrestler, he's one of the best. I don't mean at his craft, I mean as a person.
Yeah.
But at his craft too, he's very good, you know. So, and a real nice guy.
And we've done a few interviews with Kevin Sullivan, who you've worked with. What are your thoughts on him?
And again, I like Kevin. I got along with him, but I mean, we're both little bitty fellas for this business, you know. And you know, when he went into the bodybuilding thing, he had a hell of a body, and I never cared much for his devil worship thing. But it seemed to work for him. He kind of got over with it. So, but I got along with him.
And we're interviewing Dutch Mantell on Friday. Could you talk a little bit about Dutch? And...
Oh God, another good, funny, entertaining individual. And what could you say about Dutch? I mean, he's been everywhere: Puerto Rico, all over America. Booked here, booked there. He's been bookers 2 or 3 different places. So, I mean, he has put his time in this business. And he's like the rest of us, he's getting older too. And he used to look like a black bear, now he looks like a polar bear, you know, with that hair all over him, but I don't know. So, I got on with him and I in Louisiana together. We would have fun running up and down the road, booking territories. And one time we got to the town and he said, "We just went broke." I said, "What do you mean we just went broke?" He said, "All that shit we booked on the way when we left Louisiana, when we left Alexandria, Louisiana, and we drove all the way to Houston, Texas, all them great matches we put together," he said, "we didn't make no money with them, you know, we were just having fun."
Yeah.
I said, "Dutch, that must have been your booking." He just laughed. He just said, "No." But yeah, I got along good with Dutch.
And what are your thoughts on his feud with Lawler? And I haven't heard him say this, but there are some people who found out when I was going to interview you to ask you if Dutch drew more money with Lawler than you did.
Then Dutch drew me and Lawler?
Yeah.
No, shoot. No, well, he never worked as many times with him. I mean, it was, you know, so sometimes Dutch would get in there as an afterthought, but and that's not fair to him either. He would take one out and put it in Dutch, but he drew money with Lawler, but he didn't draw more money than me and Lawler.
And could you go into detail on your dealings with Andy Kaufman and that feud that you were booking at the time when he was feuding with Jerry Lawler?
Well, that was a Lawler deal from go to WoW. He came and said he had talked to Andy and we're going to do this and do that. He coming in, he wants to wrestle, blah, 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 blah. So that was Kaufman and Lawler.
What did you think of Kaufman when you met him?
I mean, he was likable enough, and he loved the business. I mean, what could you say? And you know, and he started off wrestling women, and he go up and and he got in the ring with Lawler and all the things. So I mean, he just loved the wrestling business, and I never talked to him at length about anything else. So.
Was there any commissions in Memphis or Tennessee at the time that would have hassled you guys about having the intergender matches in those days?
The commission, you mean?
Yeah, because I would think that would be pretty controversial, that you're basically having a male wrestling a female, where that very rarely happened, other than here, I guess, in those days.
Yeah. No, I mean, we never seemed like we got into any conflict with anybody. And it was a picked thing. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't just, it was an angle off TV, so it was all built up before we did it.
Yeah. And I've heard that even though Memphis is kind of known for that feud between Lawler and Andy Kaufman, that it didn't actually draw every time that they used Kaufman. I understand it may or may not have been a sellout the first time, and there was maybe 5 or 6
Small
appearances
houses,
after,
yeah. Oh yeah, it didn't sell out everyone, but I mean, what can you do?
Right.
You have a little skinny movie star, and Lawler, the head honcho of the wrestling business in this area.
Right. Did Lawler ask your advice or anything to do with the angle that he did on Letterman?
No, sir. Lawler never asked my advice on anything except matches with me and him.
Oh, okay. So was it Lawler, did he have to do with his own booking? He would do his own booking and you would handle the rest of the card? Is that how
Technically.
it would work? Yeah.
But and then sometimes he would be the booker and he would do it all too, but I would still. I was his assistant when he was the booker, but he never was mine if I was the booker. I mean, you'd go to him and talk
Right.
his match over with him. But no, so...
Because Jerry Jarrett would go on vacation for 2 to 3 months every
Just
so
whatever.
often, right? And Lawler would become the head booker
Yeah.
during that time.
Head honcho, yeah. And then if I did it, I would do my thing, and if it started to drop, we would maybe get our heads together, but most of the time we all knew what we was doing.
Who do you think would be the better booker between the two of them? Between Jarrett and Lawler?
The better businessman was Jarrett,
Yeah.
but that was on life.
Right.
Lawler run his life a lot different than Jerry. Jerry Jarrett runs his life like a business.
Right.
Lawler's is just, and I guess mine too, just one of the boys.
Right.
So, it's just 2 different men.
And I've heard that when you were working with Jerry, you guys would be very organized going into the TV tapings of everything that was going to happen, and Lawler would kind of show up the morning of, and he did it
Right.
somehow.
Yeah, right. Yeah, different kettle of fish there, yeah.
Were you involved in the creation of Kamala?
Yeah and nay, that was technically Jerry Lawler's deal.
Okay.
He wanted a monster to beat. Come up with Kamala, and then when we found the name, we were looking in books, jungle books and all kind of, and Kamala was the name they picked, and so that was basically a Jerry Lawler, Jerry Jarrett deal.
And Jim Cornette, could you talk about your experiences with him over the years?
Oh, God. Jimmy Cornette now. Jerry Jarrett, this is the true story. Saw him in Louisville. When Jerry Jarrett's mother and Jimmy Cornette's mother were friends, and they run the wrestling business. One sold the tickets, and Teeny was the promoter in Louisville. Well, Jerry was the thing too. So anyway, Cornette would come around, see his mom, and he was an obnoxious, snot-nosed brat.
Yeah.
So Jerry Jarrett says one day, in all seriousness, he said, I wonder if we could get him in the wrestling business, and maybe the fans would kill him. That's a little rough-handed. He says, oh, I can't stand that son of a bitch. He says, so anyway, as we went along, and then we put the Midnight Express together, we needed a manager, and so we went to say, hey, how about if we use Cornette? He said, well, you better go ask his mother, because if his mother says he can't do it, he can't do it. And I said, oh, he ain't like that. He said, well, go talk to her. So anyway, that was a kind of the image he had before he ever got in the wrestling business.
Right.
Mama's boy type thing. But anyway, she let him get in, and we put him with the Midnight Express, and the rest is history.
And what do you think about his popularity now? Ever since the internet, I guess, come out, he's had a resurgence.
Well, he does all kinds of cussing and swearing, and it's. If we'd been on Memphis TV, we would have been off the air if he was doing the interviews he's doing now. But that seems to be what the people want. The more you cuss, the more they seem like they like him.
Well, I hope that's not true with this interview, but our fans are a little more historic fans. And Adrian Street, he's one of my favorites.
Mine too.
Can you talk about him?
Oh, I loved Adrian Street. I brought him here from Canada. When I was the booker, I called him up and asked him to come down here, and he then brought him in here. And Street, you can't say nothing bad about Street to me. And Miss Linda, and he knows how to get heat, and he can wrestle.
Yeah.
I mean, wrestle. He's
he was
one
a
of
shooter,
them. Yeah, he's a shooter.
He hated Macho Man too, I heard,
Oh,
too.
I hope so. I hope I wasn't the only one that hated Macho Man Randy Savage. And here's the sad thing. I didn't hate Savage. He hated me. And I really don't know why.
Right.
Until we had the actual fight, until he sucker punched me. I really don't understand why.
Yeah, because you were working for Watts, I guess, when he came back.
That, and then when I worked for Jarrett, I never bothered him. We never talked about him. We never said bad things on interviews like they did to us. Yeah. We never knocked them.
Well, that's because the smaller ones always knock the bigger ones. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So Adrian Street overall, he was easy to work with. He had a good... Oh, this is something interesting that I heard you say. That originally when he came out in the robe for the first time, he thought he was going to be a baby face.
Yeah, he told me all that. He said, how did you get this gimmick? He said, well, the face paint and everything, I added later. He said, but when I first started off, I had blonde hair, had a hell of a suntan, went to the gym, had a nice enough body, and thought I'd go to the ring, and the people would say, oh my God, look at this Greek god. He said, all they did was boo me. He said, well, that made you the bad guy. He said, yeah, but I wasn't planning on being the bad guy.
It worked out pretty good for him, and he's not a bad singer either. I've heard some of his...
Oh yeah, he's a talented guy. He was one of the first to write a book. Have you read his book?
I haven't read his book yet, but I think he's got something like 7 of them out now.
And the first one I read was way back in the good old days. Yeah, he's a talented man.
I think he's back living in Wales now, from what I understand. Hopefully I'll get to meet him one day. Now, you came to Atlanta for a short period of time, and you were dealing with Ole Anderson. Why didn't that work out for you overall in Atlanta?
Have you been around Ole much?
I've only seen videos of him. I never have met him.
Well, Ole, if you're not your size and his size, he doesn't think you should be in the wrestling business. I mean, there's no room in Ole's wrestling world for a little guy. So when I got the book, I got to help him down there, and I brought Street in and all the other. Adrian came with me to Atlanta, and but he could wrestle, so Ole liked him. He knew he was a shooter, so Ole, that was all right with Ole. But all us other little guys, it was phony little wrestlers. He never cared much about us. But Ricky and Robert got over, and they go over wherever they went. But Ole wouldn't give him the go-ahead type thing. I mean. So he closed down that part of the territory, so we just came back to Memphis, and that was the end of that.
Oh, so what happened? He opened up some new towns, or you were supposed to take over certain towns?
Yeah, well, kind of like that. He was doing Atlanta and doing the spot show type thing. We were doing the smaller ones and just off that same TV. But it wasn't really working, so.
Was, I guess your only dealings with Junkyard Dog would have been in Mid-South, when you were in Mid-South?
Yeah.
Can you talk about the whole situation of how you were brought into Mid-South and the talent exchange that happened at that time?
Yeah, we had, when we brought Ricky and Robert and the Midnight Express and Jimmy Cornette, they had never seen people like them. I mean, JYD was the top babyface. Before that, for 10 years or 15 years, was Bill Watts. Look at the size of them guys. And then Jim Duggan, Hacksaw Butch Reed. So they were all monsters.
Right.
So I bring in a crew of little bitty fellas. I mean, compared to them, itty bitty fellas. Ricky Morton, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Taking the place of JYD, big black dude, kick ass, little white dude, blonde hair, sell his ass off. Two different kettles of fish, but it worked.
And how did you like dealing with Bill Watts? Because he was known for being definitely, there was no question he was the boss.
Yes, he was. But I mean, again, I liked him because I can be a little Bill Wattish too, I guess. If you're really passionate about what you're doing and somebody's screwing up, it doesn't matter what you say to him as long as you get it at, hey, you know, and Bill was like that too. And I'm kind of like that. But he was 6'2" or whatever, 300 pounds, and I'm 5'7", 210. The guys look at you a little different, I guess, but it still means the same thing. I'm still the booker.
What was the money like in those days in that territory?
Unbelievable. When he come up here and looking for a crew and talking to Jerry Jarrett, I came into the office, so they were all sitting talking about it. So Bill says, well, my territory's on its backside, we got to do this, we got to do that, blah, blah, blah. So they talked about getting some of the boys to, Jarrett says to him, Bill Watts, if I was you before I leave this office today, I would talk to that little son of a bitch over there and see if he wants to come be your booker. And he kind of looked at me and I kind of looked at him. So he called everybody stud back in them days. So he comes over to me and he sits down kind of like where we are, and he looks at me, he said, hey stud, you think you'd like to go to Louisiana? I said, well, yeah. He said, be the booker, work in the office? Yeah. He said, no, this is 1983. He says, I will guarantee you don't have a week below $3,000. Every week, $3,000. 4 3s is 12. 12 grand a month. You know what I mean? Thing. So he said, yeah. He said, that'll be your worst week. 3 grand be the worst week. So what are you going to say? No.
Yeah, even today that's good money.
Even today, yeah. So this is 83, so what do you... So,
that'd be like 5,000
yeah, and I'm the boss, the pencil. Yeah, I'll be there. I'll have the crew put together tonight. So I went and talked to Ricky and Robert and all the guys, and off we go to Louisiana. So I don't really know how would you... When we walked into Houston, I think we all started off about Houston, Paul Bosch's town. They were all there, all the monsters, guys your size. And Ricky, Robert, me, Terry Taylor, Magnum TA was already there. So 6 guys, normal size type guys walk in.
Yeah.
This is the crew. And Grizzly Smith is the assistant booker. You know how big Grizzly is.
Yeah.
And Jake, that's his son, Jake Roberts. So.
Yeah. And I'm friends with Sam, his other son.
Oh yeah, Sam. I like Sam. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know what the people thought. Well, look at the little bitty fellas, but my God, the month later, selling out everywhere.
Wow.
Unbelievable business.
Why did everyone like working for Paul Bosch so much?
Well, Paul would pay you. I mean, even.
Yeah.
And like, I was hooked in with Bill Watts, so I couldn't really tell you how Paul was on that part.
Right.
Bill
he paid
Watts.
Bill a fee to provide talent.
Yeah, right. So, but I think that he was a good payoff guy back in the day.
Did you ever meet Bruce Pritchard when you were in your time?
Did I ever meet Bruce Pritchard? Yes, sir. What do I think of Bruce Pritchard? Do you know his brother Tom?
Yes.
They're different. Bruce can get a little heat from not mean to get it with the wrong people, but anyway, I don't know, I guess I tolerated him. That would be the word I would imagine. He may have tolerated me too, I don't know. But he wasn't near as smart as he thought he was.
Right.
That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was, but I have a lot of books that I can prove to you how much money it drew.
Yeah, he kind of dropped out of the business for a while, and now with his podcast, he's become relevant again.
See, that's another thing about them podcast thing. I mean, anybody can get one.
Yeah.
and make yourself technically anything you want.
Yeah.
We don't know the guy sitting there talking if he was ever in the wrestling business, never mind what he drew.
Right.
I mean, I can show you on black and white and the money that I drew for Watts and here and everything else, because I still have all them books that I worked for Bill Watts with what it drew.
There's definitely more than a few stories I've heard from Bruce's podcast that I've talked to credible people that can say they didn't happen the way Bruce says it, but that's his podcast, I guess.
Right.
Whatever makes him money.
Yeah.
And what was the deal with Jerry Lawler attempting to possibly break away in 1983 and form his own company? What was that situation over?
More points for Lawler from Jarrett. And I guess Jerry had told him no, so he said, well, the hell with you. I'll just open it. And if he had let him do it, Lawler would have went out of business.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't a businessman, Jerry. He wasn't going to put in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And Jerry Jarrett would do that if that's what he needed to do to kick your ass, and like Nick Gulas or whoever else.
Yeah.
The Pappas, the Savages, that's what he did.
Yeah.
Lawler wouldn't have done that. It's not in him. He's not built that way.
I can only imagine, because I don't promote 7 days a week, how much work promoting 7 days a week is and making sure all the towns are successful. But I know you guys had local promoters probably in most of the towns that you put some of the trust in.
Well, kind of like that, but the TV has to be you. And we made the TV in Memphis on a Saturday morning, an hour and a half for Memphis. But we made a 42-minute TV out of that.
Right.
So out of that hour and a half, we took the 42 minutes that we wanted and we put it on a bicycle and we sent it all around the other towns, and they put their own ads in and their own, you know how it works, you're in that business. Yeah. So that's what we did there. So we actually just made the one TV, Memphis Television, Saturday morning, hour and a half. But we got the 42-minute tape out of it for the rest of the territory. So whatever was happening in Memphis the next week, it was coming to your town.
And your territory was actually one of the few territories that were paid for your TV show, isn't that right?
Yeah, they got paid for it, yeah.
Yeah, because most promoters were putting it up free, or they had to actually pay to be on the station.
Well, it started that way here too, but then as it got going, Jarrett got making, like I said, he was a businessman. He sat at his table thinking, what can I do?
Is it true that kind of heat that Lawler had with Jerry was over Jerry's house when he saw the size of his new house?
I don't really know the heat of what it was, but I mean, it's enormous. It's unfucking believable. I mean, just, you know, and back when he built it, he's moved. It's still there. You can drive by and see it. 17,000 square feet. That's a pretty big house.
Yeah.
Unreal.
I heard there was a ballroom in it.
There's a ballroom in it. No, the thing. It's a hell of a house, and he built it himself. I mean, he designed it and built it. He's a very intelligent guy. So I'm sure
in construction, isn't he?
Huh?
He's involved in construction.
He was involved in the thing, but he wasn't when he built that house.
Okay.
But yeah.
And could you tell the story of you forgot Tommy Rogers on the side of the road once when he was going for a pee? Oh
yeah, we took off and left him. We were coming through Fairdale, Louisiana, Jerry Lee Lewis's hometown. So they're all smoking dope. I mean, I'm driving, but I wasn't smoking. I never smoked dope, never smoked cigarettes, but you get high anyway. I don't give a fuck who you are. If you're in the car and they're smoking pot, you're as goofy as they are. You don't have to. You don't have to inhale it. You're just as goofy. So anyway, I'm sitting behind the wheel. Tommy Rogers, I got to pee, so we get out. And Tommy Rich got out with him. Or was it Rich or Bobby Fulton? I think it was. What was that? Was Bobby Fulton? Okay. So the two of them got out.
Yeah.
And Bobby got in and slammed the door, and I thought they both got in and slammed the door. So I just took off. And we're looking in the mirror. And the fuck's Tommy Rogers? Looking at the empty seat. I said, damn, we left him. So here he comes, he's just walking up the road, he just had his shirt on, he's just walking. He said, well, I figured you'd all miss me sometime. So he just kept walking up the middle of the road, pitch black, Fairday, Louisiana. I said, damn, you could have been killed, man.
That's hilarious. What do you think the downfall was of Bill Watts' territory? Just the economy fell out in those states, or was there more to it than that?
Well, in the end, it was, by the time, you mean after we'd had our run, or?
Yeah, after you've had your run, because I know you were only going in there for a period of time, then coming back, I guess, right?
Yeah, now, everybody can't book.
Yeah.
And when I left, he got a couple other guys from Tennessee to do it, and they just hot-shotted it. And I said, Bill, don't get two guys to follow me, because they'll try to do the same shit. They all learned it in Tennessee. Well, he didn't. He went on with it, and that was the end of that. So it kind of went downhill. And then talent was hard. You know, people were running out of talent.
Yeah. I guess WWE was picking them
Yeah,
up.
they were getting all the names, and we were getting what they didn't want.
I've heard Jerry Jarrett say in recent years that he doesn't remember any heat between this territory and WWE during the expansion, but that could just be because he's on good terms with them now. Do you remember, was there any fear at all when they started promoting in this area?
No, and Jarrett never really was scared of anybody.
Right.
On a promoting level.
Yeah.
If he had a kind of a same playing field. I mean, he was a smart dude in this business. And you know, I mean, and I didn't know nothing about Vince McMahon, how he was. And I went up to his house one time, had lunch with him and his family, got on the plane, come home, and that was the last time I heard or saw him. Obviously never got the job, or I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now, would I?
No. And the other thing, one of the reasons why I think you guys weren't affected too much by the WWE's expansion is you guys never really tried to expand beyond your territory, where it seemed like all these other companies tried to fight it by going into places like they weren't known.
They shouldn't have been there, where their people weren't over, yeah.
Crockett, probably, if they just stayed where they were popular, they could have probably held off too. I've heard you say that you consider Buddy Landel the real Nature Boy, and I've heard J.J. Dillon say it too. I've talked to him, and he's said how talented Buddy Landel was.
Unbelievable.
But I guess he just had personal demons.
He was his own worst enemy. He was a better worker than Flair. If you've seen one of Ric Flair's matches, you've seen them all. Same bumps, upside down, over the turnbuckle, run along the apron, slam him off the top. Once you've seen that, you've seen it, match is over.
And you actually spent some time in Jim Crockett's promotion too at one point, didn't you?
Yeah.
Why didn't that work out into a long stay?
I really don't know. I mean, I always just loved Memphis.
Yeah.
And I would usually just take a while away, or if Jarrett would call and say, hey man, you decide to come home, I'd, yeah. So once he said that, you know, he was getting my job back and all, you know, so, but I enjoyed Memphis, so.
Was it Dusty that brought you into the Crockett's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got along good with him. I mean, but you have to know how he is. Dusty's a one-guy booker. Him. He books him. He doesn't care about the rest of them. He looks after Big Dust.
Yeah.
He's the main event, and he's looking after the main event. You know, so and the rest of us fill in. When that's why you have assistant bookers, and you have guys helping you in the office, so they can do what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So when I worked for Jarrett, or I never did it. I always wanted to be the guy having my finger on everything. So, but Big Dust had his way of doing things, and that was all right. He made a lot.
And how did it come about that the Memphis territory took over World Class for a while, anyways?
Jarrett made a deal with the Von Erich boys to go down and help him, and I don't know if he was buying it, or I have no idea if there was any money changing hands, or if he was just helping, or what he was doing for a percentage of whatever. But in the end, it all bowed up when we left, and they went out of business, and we still struggled along a little bit longer.
What were the Von Erichs like to work with during that period of time? Because they were known for their extracurricular activities.
Yeah. And again, I never really was around much of them, so And Kerry was nice enough to be around. What was the other one?
Kevin.
Kevin seemed more, I don't know, standoffish, or he was a little colder. Kerry seemed like he was more like one of the boys, but Kevin was, and then the little bitty one, it was, what was his name?
And Mike, the one, he eventually passed away too.
Yeah.
Or that Mike was, there was one even smaller than Mike that ended up dying too, but I can't remember. Chris, there was Chris and Mike.
Chris, so he was the littlest one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean.
They tried to push him, but he had no talent apparently.
None, and no size.
Yeah.
And I'm the last guy to say anything about being little, but when you're smaller than me, you itty bitty.
And I don't know how old he was, but the footage I've seen of him, he literally looked like a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Just little bitty, looked like a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve Austin started off in this territory. It was one of the first real territories he worked. Did you have much contact with him in his early days?
Yeah. Steve Williams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was around him at the beginning of a lot. He still likes me. He says I should be in the Hall of Fame. Tell him, Steve, call up your buddy Vince McMahon. Call up Vince and tell him Dundee needs to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, he might actually see this because he's seen a few of our videos, and I actually talked to him earlier this year, and I was surprised that he watches our videos. So is there anything more you can tell us about Steve? Because I know you worked with him in WCW.
Right, and what you see is what you get. Beer drinking, redneck. But that's another story. No, he was a kind of clumsy when he got in this business. You had to watch him when you first start working with him, but he got better, and he got, like the rest of us, learned what to do and what not to do, and I liked him, so I mean I got along good with him. But
what did you think of his manager at the time, Lady Blossom? I'm not sure what she was known in the Memphis territory.
Was that
Jeannie?
Jeannie, yeah, I knew her.
What did you think about them as a group?
I mean, good. I like Jeannie. I got along good with her, and I got along good with Steve. So that's the main thing.
Did you see something in him at the time that you thought maybe this guy could become a star in the future?
Well, he had a hell of a body, and you just give him a little guidance, and it can be. So he obviously did all right. So he learned something.
And the Undertaker is someone that also started in this territory. Any memories of him?
All bad. I don't know why he didn't like me. I'm the reason. I think he's the reason I never got past the front desk of Vince.
Really? So there was some heat even in the days from USWA, I guess it was called, when he was working up here.
Yeah. I hate getting into this type thing, but all I'm going to say is he married a girl that I knew, and there's no telling what she'd said to him about me, because the heat's all on his end. I have nothing. Mark Callis doesn't like me. I have never did nothing for him not to like me that I know of. When he was in here, I tried to help him, big red-headed guy with freckles. I tried to help him, but I just don't know. And him and Dutch Mantell were big buddies. Maybe Dutch can tell you when you interview Dutch. Say, why doesn't the friggin' Undertaker like Dundee? Because he was little and cute, and he was big and red-headed. But anyway, that's another story.
I'll actually ask about that, and maybe I think the Undertaker's on his third wife now. I'm almost positive, because there was one named, I think, Sarah, that he had tattooed on his neck, and then he had the tattoo removed, and he's married to someone else now. So that may have been his first. So that
I don't know, but the one that we both knew was. But anyway.
Why is it that a lot of wrestlers end up with the same women? Like Jeannie, who dated Austin there, also was married to Billy Jack Haynes and Chris Adams before.
No telling.
The Warrior's wife also married Brian Pillman.
Yeah, I have no idea where that comes from.
And what do you think of Eric Embry as a booker and a wrestler?
He had a pretty good run in, what's the one, Erichs?
World Class.
World Class. He booked it for a while. we were booking both places, and he had a pretty fair run, but he hot shotted it. So, and he could work.
Was he one of the ones that took over Bill Watts' territory from you as a booker?
No.
No. Who was that? You don't remember?
Yeah, and I don't want his niece passed on, so I don't.
Oh, okay.
To get into
we won't even get into it then.
It's easy to knock somebody down here to defend themselves, but.
Were you around when Kane worked this territory? I guess Glenn Jacobs is his real name. I think he was Unabomber or something.
Yeah, he started in here. And then the Undertaker came in. We had them teamed up for a little while, just two guys, big old boys. So yeah, a lot of them started in here.
And what brought you to WCW? You're probably, I know from me being from Canada, I remember you well from WCW, and probably our international fans remember you best from that time. I guess it probably was Bill Watts that brought you in.
Yeah. He got the job as general manager, and he brought me in to, I don't know what he brought me in for, to be one of the bookers, I guess, because there was 4 or 5 of them. Greg Gagne, Mike Graham, me.
Maybe Flair, or no, Flair wasn't back by that time.
But he sucked anyway. He never really got in no booking committee. I mean,
No, I
the
heard
world's champion's different.
Yeah, I heard he wasn't very responsible as a booker.
No, or a person.
I heard that from other people that were on the booking committees that he would just disappear when everyone was there for a meeting. He would just leave for periods of time. Or they were, I won't get into it because it's hearsay if I'm not talking to one of them, but I heard he didn't really want to be the booker. So what was the booking committee like in WCW? Was it working well at that time?
Well, it seemed like Bill Watts was the honcho.
Yeah.
Greg Gagne, Mike Graham, that's 2 people who grew up in the wrestling business.
Right.
Bill Dundee. So there's 4 people that's been in the wrestling business, and then they had, that was the main booking committee then. So I thought it worked all right. But Bill Watts is going to make sure that it works all right. I mean, it's his neck, it's on the line, so.
Now, one of the controversial things about Bill Watts' time as head of WCW was the push that Eric Watts got. What do you think about that whole push as a member of the booking committee?
That was before me or after me. I wasn't there when they were pushing Eric.
Okay.
So I don't really know what that was. I think that was before me, when Bill first took the job.
I know Eric ended up becoming a really good wrestler, so it's unfortunate that his best run was before he was ready, I guess.
Before he was ready. Sometimes it happens that way.
Any memories stand out to you as an agent from WCW?
No, I just try to do my job and do whatever. I mean, it was all kind of laid out before you got there. I mean, from the booking committee or do whatever. So by the time you walked in the building, it was all just like a piece of paper like that. You knew what was happening. So this is this and this is that, and if you don't like it, go home type thing. So.
Were you doing the house shows too? Going over the matches and observing them at the time. What would have been the job of an agent at a house show other than to make sure everyone's there on time, tell them the finishes, make sure the matches run according to times?
You've just named it all. Yeah. And every agent didn't show up. I mean, there may just be 1 or 2 at the town.
Okay.
We all didn't show up. There wasn't, the 3 or 4 of us. So usually just 1 per town per night.
How was the house show attendance in those days?
No, it was fair. We was doing mainly around Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, I actually read in Bill Watts' book where he speaks highly of you that he said that the company went from a huge loss to almost breaking even the year that he was running it, and he didn't really get a chance, like a huge amount of time.
Yeah.
Now, I told you about this on the phone. I was going to ask you because I got Vader's version of the story, and I have Sid's version of the story of the infamous incident with Arn Anderson in Europe, which I guess you were the agent for that tour.
Unfortunately. All right, you want the true story? As a guy that has no marbles in the race and was there.
Yes.
They got into bickering at one another in the bar like the boys do when they're drinking. And they said some nasty things to one another. Well, Arn Anderson, you're Ric Flair's buddy, that's the only reason you get booked. Well, you're just a big steroid head, that's the only reason you get that kind of back and forth. So my room was right here and Arn's was across the road from him, so I hear Sid Vicious yelling at Arn Anderson, you man, where are you, you son of a bitch? So Arn has come down trying to get in his door, and Sid hits him on the door opens and Sid hits him with the leg of a chair that Sid had been carrying. Arn falls in, and I think he may have landed on the bed because he comes out with the scissors in his hand. Sid took off up to his room and he was trying to get his key in the door, and Arn run up and stabbed him in the side. Boom, boom, boom. Oh my God. So I think my second wife was married to him then, so I said, oh my God, he's stabbing him. So what are you going to do? There's blood pouring out of his side there, and Sid's holding his side, so Sid goes outside and falls over. Oh my God, Arn, trying to think the guy was the in-house security.
Doug Dillinger?
Yeah, Dillinger. So Dillinger comes down and says, where'd you go? I have no earthly idea. The guy, I think Sid hit Arn with a stick or something. Arn come back and stabbed Sid. Sid has run outside, he's fell over outside, he's bleeding. We need an ambulance. So the police come, they take him to the jail and do all the things, so then they send them both home. And I really don't know what happened after that. I mean, nobody got fired, nobody, but I mean, it was just started over two guys not getting along. And
there could have been charges laid by the police over all that, so I guess everyone was involved was lucky.
Yeah, in Britain it could have been.
Yeah.
And in England, yeah, but yeah. They said if you send them home in the morning, we won't arrest none of them. So they technically deported them, I guess you could say. They put them on the plane.
Which is good for you, because I guess as the agent in charge, you would have been dragged into all that, the whole court case. And
I wouldn't have seen it then. I would have been in bed. You know how that is? No, I was in bed, so I never saw nothing.
So I guess you didn't want to even dare get anywhere close to them when this was going on, because they're too wild.
It was ridiculous. Two big old boys and little old me getting in the middle of that. No, sir.
And Arn Anderson, we know he was a great technical worker, but it seems like WWE constantly tries to make it out like he was more over than he was, just the way that they try and make history out. Do you think that's just because of his friendship with Ric Flair?
Well, that and the Four Horsemen, I mean, and he was one of them.
Yeah.
So the Four Horsemen were over.
Yeah.
So on that alone, you could say, well, the kid was over, but he was never over a single Arn Anderson.
Yeah. What did you think of Sid as a wrestler and a draw?
He drew a few dollars in Memphis. He worked with Lawler in Memphis, drew money.
And how did it come about that you became the manager of Steven Regal when he came to WCW?
Okay. Big Dust called a meeting. We were all in there. Mike Graham, me, Gagne. So he said, hey baby, we got the thing. Lord Steven Regal. Gonna make him, you know how he talked with that list?
Yeah.
Gonna make him a lord. Oh, we are. He said, now we need a manager for him. He said, what about Larry Zbyszko? I said, Larry Zbyszko? What the hell does Zbyszko have to do with an Englishman? He said, well, what do you suggest? I said, well, I'm a Scotsman, that's the country right next door to England, Big Dust. At least I know about England, can talk about the Lord and know all about lords and ladies and all that thing. So then he just said, never cracked a smile, nothing. He went just like this. He said, then you manage it. Sat back and that was it. I said, me, okay, you want me to manage the Regal? Yeah, just told you that, didn't I? I said, well, yeah. He said, okay. You said Bischoff would suck. I never said that. I never said Bischoff would suck at it. I just said he's American. He just wouldn't know about the English. So, you know, Big Dusty. He said, well, you manage him. You're Sir William. Okay. So that's how it became. See how much thought it became?
Yeah.
That's how Big Dust was. Now, if that had been for him, There's been a lot of thought given to it, but, well, you manage him.
Did you get extra pay as a talent?
Oh yeah, you got extra pay, the talent. You go down and see the accountant and he figures it all out, and this is what you're getting for Sir William, this is what you're getting for booking, this is the, yeah, oh yeah, Turner looked after you.
What were your initial thoughts of Regal when you met him?
Oh, I liked him, and he could wrestle.
Yeah.
And he's a good, he never quite got the American style for a little while. We had to kind of work at it with him. But that's why Big Dust put me with him. And one of the reasons you got to kind of try to help him.
Right.
And he got it in the end, so he turned into a hell of a worker.
And you were involved, I guess, in the feud he had with Sabisco. That hit a ratings record, I guess.
Yeah.
All-time ratings record for WCW. Why did they end up taking you out? Did that have to do with Bischoff coming in?
Yeah, Eric Bischoff cleaned house.
Just one more thing about Bill Watts before I ask you about Bischoff. Is it true, I've heard some people say that Bill Watts intentionally got himself fired because there was a clause in his contract
Had to pay him.
that they had to pay him, yeah.
Now that's all hearsay. But I know Bill Watts and how he is with money. He never walked out on the kind of money they were paying him and got none.
Right.
So that probably was in there.
So that's why, like, is it true that he actually was in a board meeting once and just walked to the balcony and
Beat off it?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was trying to get fired.
Yeah. Well, that would be the only reason why a person would do something like that, because he wasn't a stupid individual.
No. That would be a calculated move on his part.
So Eric Bischoff coming in, what were your initial impressions of him?
At the beginning, he was just in the office. So you never really thought much of him at all. He hauled the ring and put the ring up for Gagne.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what, in your mind, that's what he is, type thing. And then he wore a suit and a tie. And when Bill Watts left, he went over to Bill Shaw, or whoever one of them guys kissed their ass and got Bill Watts' job. And the rest is history, as they say.
And what do you think of his run? I guess there was a short period of time there where he had some success, but overall you can't really say it was a success because he was fired and the company went out of business.
Oh, he shouldn't have got the job he got. But he talked to the right people. Bill Shaw and them other people that wore suits in the office, he got around them. And it seemed like Turner Broadcasting was run like that. If you wore a suit and a tie, you was somebody.
And what were your thoughts on Jeff Jarrett when he started wrestling in Memphis?
Well, I mean, he was a young kid. I mean, he was just starting out. I mean, he was the boss's son, and Jerry kind of made the same mistake that he said he wouldn't, but he did, like Nick Gulas did with George.
Yeah.
When you're the boss's son and you're not, well, look at the Gagnes. Greg Gagne wasn't over like his dad, and it has that stigma about it, the boss's son.
Probably would have helped Greg a bit. I like Greg, but I wish if he had just gone to the gym.
Yeah, right.
Now, so other than that, was Jeff, he followed instructions when you were booking with him?
Oh yeah, he had no problem with that, and he still doesn't.
Were you gone from WCW when Hulk Hogan came in? Or were you still there at that point?
No, I think I may have been there at the beginning.
Okay.
Because he brought Brutus the Barber with him too, didn't he? Yeah.
What did you think about that? What did you think that'd be good for the company?
Well, I mean, it couldn't really hurt it. He was a big star worldwide. Didn't matter what he was. I mean, he started off in Memphis, so I knew him when he started. Well, I don't really know if he actually did change or any of that. I mean, I'm the same as when I was 40 years ago. Well, yeah. I think I am.
Yeah.
And Hogan was the same way. I mean, he knows where he come from. He knows what he did. And yeah, he had made movies and he'd done a few other things. So, I mean, he never looked like he changed to me, but I don't know.
I've heard you say that Flair didn't have the balls to speak up for himself when Hogan was beating him time and time again when he first came into WCW. Do you think that was a mistake on Flair's part? Obviously, I must think you do.
Sure, I mean, if you know, and again, I don't know the situation of what they were all doing there, but I mean, let's face it, Ric Flair was the world's champion when Hogan came in.
Right.
And people believe WCW World's Champion was better than Vince's champion.
Right.
He was a real wrestler. And then you have the phony champion that they're calling, coming in night and beating you every night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how I saw it anyway. But he was getting a paycheck and a pretty big one, so.
What was your official reason given for your release from WCW?
Let me think now. I have the paper at home. I need to dig it up and see. What did it say? We had a 90-day clause in all the contracts.
Right.
So at the end of 90 days they would redo your thing. So it just said then it just said, Mr. Bill Dundee, at the end of this 90 days we are not going to renew your contract. So at that time you will be terminated. Blah blah blah. Signed, Eric Bischoff.
Okay. So I'm going to guess it was after your run with WCW that you had the famous meeting at Vince's house? Yeah,
I went up there to see him. He flew me up there and went to his big house. And the girl was just a teenager, and what's changed, and his wife was there and him, and we sat and talked. So we're sitting there, we've had lunch, so this is after lunch, and we've talked and everybody's there, the kids were there, and they've gone away, Shane and the girl, whatever. So there's just the kind of me and Vince sitting there looking at one another across the table. So then he comes up with a $94,000 question. He says, is there anybody in my company that you don't get along with? Well, I was going to shoot Macho Man's dad with a .38, and I don't think the Undertaker likes me. And I said, I have no idea why he don't. So he said, oh, okay. And it was just like a matter of fact. He said, oh, and so anyway, we went about maybe another hour or so to meeting with the thing. So he said, well, you know, plane to catch. He said, I'll have my car come get you, pick you up, drop you off at the airport. Shook my hand, said it was nice meeting you, sir. We'll be in touch. That was a lie, never heard from him. Either way, nothing.
Right.
So I never called him, he never called me, so here we are.
Now, back to Jeff Jarrett for a moment. There was a period of time where him and Jerry stopped talking. Do you know what that was over?
No earthly idea, but I mean, I know Jeff and I know Jerry, and knowing them both, I could, you know, my son sometimes don't talk to me.
Speaking of your son, he made some appearances on Jerry Springer. Did you ever appear on Jerry Springer?
Oh yeah.
What?
Oh damn, that's the worst work in the wrestling business. Oh my God, yeah, we did one.
Do you remember the name of the episode if people want to look it up?
I don't know, but I think if you punched in Bill Dundee, it would come up there. Or Jamie Dundee's Jerry Springer run would just. Isn't that awful? Can't really remember what it was about. Because it's all garbage to start with, but.
So I guess somehow your son got a relationship with the show, and they were looking for people that could portray. Well,
yeah, it was kind of a real one with me and him. It was father-son type thing. Yeah, did the deal. Yeah, he went to work for him before I did. He actually had a job with him.
Okay.
So he did the thing. So yeah. So I just did the one with him and me. And it was fun. It was kind of like a wrestling show. Just Springer. They don't smarten Springer up. Well, they technically don't smarten him up at all. He knows that we're not going to punch one another or punch him or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But all the rest of it, he doesn't really know nothing about. So it was kind of fun to do.
Did you meet Jerry?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's a nice guy. To do the thing, and he'll tell you now. Don't get too violent out there. This is off the camera.
Yeah.
Don't worry. So.
Wow, and that show was one of the most popular shows on TV for a while there.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, it was just like a wrestling show. Good versus evil. Good guy, bad guy.
And I forgot to ask you, during your time in WCW, I think Triple H worked there as Jean-Paul Levesque.
Yeah, Jean-Paul Levesque. He was just Jean-Paul Levesque, and just I'd tell him what we wanted, he'd go do it, and everybody had fun. I mean, I never really hung out with him. We never went. Well, we went to the gym a time or two and worked out, but apart from that, never went out drinking with him or none of that. So I don't know.
Why was he never put in a group with Steve Regal, or was he? Oh no, they were the Blue Bloods originally.
Yeah, the Blue Bloods were the thing. Yeah.
Were you still managing them at that point? I don't.
No, I had gone by then.
Okay. So when you met Triple H, he was green, so you really couldn't have any idea whether or not he would have the...
Yeah, he was just Jean-Paul Levesque from Canada, wherever he was from.
I guess he became the ultimate politician.
Well, that's what it's all about. Jerry Lawler could have given him lessons, though.
Now, I didn't know this until today when a fan pointed it out, but... apparently, when Jerry Lawler was the AWA World Champion, there was a switch done in this area where you won the title for the night of the American Wrestling.
I'm still trying to get that in my head, what we did and why we did it for. Because we never did nothing in this territory if it didn't have a meaning.
Right. I know that Lawler said there was some issue where he was never paid by Vern for the night that he won the title or something, so maybe he almost did it just because he didn't care about
no telling.
Yeah.
I just don't realize and remember why we did it.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll run into Jerry again at some point and I'll ask him. And you were, for a while there, the AWA Tag Team
Champion. We were that now. We went up there and...
What was your experience like in the AWA?
Oh, I mean, we enjoyed the night. There was a couple of nights we was up there and all the thing, and Vern was very nice to us.
What were the crowds like up north there compared to Memphis?
What year was that, does it say?
From my own recollection, I think it would have been around 87, 88.
Yeah, so we were still doing good in Memphis, 88, and they were doing all right too, so the crowds were pretty fair, both places.
Why did that relationship not last? Because for a while there, it was going well from the tapes I've seen. Just pay issues, I guess, maybe?
I don't know.
And I guess that whole situation was just various companies trying to fight the Vince McMahon onslaught.
Yeah, just trying to stay afloat.
Now, I might not get the names right, but a fan wanted me to ask you any stories on Lou Stanley and George Clousey from Australia days.
Yeah, that was George Barnes.
Okay.
That's his real name, George Clousey, and he came over here with me as George Barnes. So when we came here in '75, it was Barnes and Dundee. He was George Barnes.
Oh, so that you've already talked about him as George Barnes, but Lou Stanley, anything to say about him for this?
That Lou Stanley's not ringing a bell.
Okay. There's a few fan questions I'm going to ask to close this off. A fan asked if you think Lawler stayed on top for too long, and that's why the business wasn't as good as it was in the 90s compared to the 80s.
No, I don't really think it had anything to do with who was on top. It was just everything changed. I mean, TV's changed, everything changed, and Elvis was around as long as he wanted to be. So.
Did you ever meet Elvis? Because I understand he.
No, but he used to want to come to the wrestling matches. In '76, when he passed on, he made a deal where he could come and sit in the press box. And that's how they used to go up and meet him. But Sputnik Monroe and all them met him, but that was different just before us. So
you're still wrestling. What else do you want to tell us that you're up to these days for fans that want to follow you? Or?
Oh, basically just the wrestling thing. I mean, wherever on a local level. I mean, they wanted me to go to New Jersey. Well, it's supposed to be today. I didn't really want to go. I mean, not that I have anything against New Jersey, but there can't be millions of people know who Bill Dundee is up there. I mean, if you're into this kind of thing, like what you do, it's very good for getting my name out there, because people wouldn't know who I was and watches your show. No, but so I just don't go much out of the South now. I mean, I started off in the South 40 years ago and still here, and it's been very good to me.
And you are on Facebook. I know you're not the most technical guy, but it's under Bill Dundee. I think you have 2 Facebooks, possibly.
Yeah, that, and then there's another one. What's the other one? If you don't want the same name as my book, if you don't want the answer, don't ask the question. That's one, so you can get on that.
And that's on Amazon.com if people want to order that.
That is, yeah.
And it's a very entertaining book for anyone watching this. I read it in less than a week, and I thought it was great. A lot of these stories from this interview come from the book, but I just scratched the surface of the details of these stories. So if you read the book, it really goes into great detail of a lot of this.
My email address is bdundee@888gmail.com. So if they want to get in touch with me that way, it's bdundee888gmail.com.
And you're still wrestling, but from what I understand, I know all the fans want this. When it finally is time for you to hang it up, you're 75, I guess, and still going strong. I don't know how old Lawler is, but
68, I think.
So you guys are hoping that maybe there'll be one last run of your
One last hurrah, Lawler. Look out. I'm taking you out before I quit.
Well, you know what? If that happens, we may need to have a match of that up in our territory. So one of that series of the Lawler Bill Dundee retirement match might have to come up to Canada for the first time ever.
Now that would be unbelievable. But I'm not coming in the winter time. It gets cold up there.
Oh, I don't blame you. Even now, there's quite a large difference between here and Canada. So you have a podcast too, right?
Yeah.
It's not a weekly thing, but from
every Monday usually.
Oh, every Monday?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is, if you search Bill Dundee podcast, I listened to a couple of the episodes. That will pop up on Google, and it's not a flashy podcast. He answers questions about his career, and it's very much to the point.
About like this interview.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I don't really think you should be... Flash is usually BS to start with. So, I mean, if you just answer the question right or wrong, did you knock him out? Yes. What more can you say?
Did you ever wrestle Les Thornton? I used to know him. Yeah, what did you think of him?
Very good.
You actually remind me of him. Your build is similar now.
Yeah, but the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Les Thornton, a good worker.
And
good wrestler, too.
To close this off, is there anything you'd like to say to your fans out there that have watched this for 2 hours?
Well, for all you people that still remember who Bill Dundee is, I appreciate all the years of support, and believe me, I've had a lot of people. Every Monday night there'd be 10,000 of you all show up to cheer me on, whoop Lawler, or whoever else I was whooping. So I appreciate the fan support and all you people that back Bill Dundee, and for all the merchandise and pictures you bought over the years. I appreciate you for that, and you all take care out there, and any wrestling match you see me in, come see me.
And just for my sake, could you close this off with a Sir William impression?
A Sir William impression.
Because I love that character.
Hey, Governor, how are you? See, I haven't done it in so long. I've gotten back to my redneck ways. Sir William. Hi, this is Sir William, and I manage the one and only Lord Stephen Regal. And Larry Sabisco, I wouldn't be you for all the tea in China tonight.